Good morning. We are in Deuteronomy 11 today. If you're new here, we have myriad playlists, hundreds of Bible readings. We are reading the Bible from Genesis 1 forward and from Matthew 1 forward. The reason we are reading our Bible is because the vast majority of people who claim to be Christians don't. And the vast majority of people do things that are extra biblical at best and straight up an abomination at worst because they don't read their Bible. Many people have been asking me recently, what is your religion? I don't have a religion. Religion is man-made bull stuff. I have a firm belief in Messiah. I believe firmly in the Torah and the prophets. And I love Yahuwah, my Elohim, the Lord our God, with everything that I've got. And some days my cup runneth over, and other days I have to look real hard for the 2 or 3 drops that's in the bottom of the cup. Today is somewhere in the middle. I read out of the ISR, Institute for Scriptural Research translation called The Scriptures, which is a new translation based on the original source texts. It's not a new translation of a translation. It's a new translation from the original source texts, with the only agenda being to get as close to the truth of the original texts as possible. I have no love whatsoever for any arguments that start with, yeah, but my pastor said, or, well, I was taught, or, well, that's not what it means to me. Because we have this word right here in front of us. And I have the King James and the New King James and the Message and the NIV and the Sefer and the Founder's Bible and the Complete Jewish Bible and the Sefer Lexicon and the Strong's Concordance and eSword and myriad other translations and reference texts and the Apocrypha and Jasher and Enoch and all of that. And if we're looking for truth, we'll find it in this word. And then it's up to us to either obey that truth or disobey that truth. Believe it and have our belief be counted as righteousness, like Abraham, the father of our faith. Or to disbelieve and be a casualty when Yeshua comes back. Not me. Let's read Deuteronomy 11. And you shall love Yahuwah, Yahweh, your Elohim, and guard his charge, even his laws and his right rulings and his commands, always. Yeah, well, that was done away with, always. And you shall love Yah, your Elohim, and guard his charge, even his laws and his right rulings and his commands, always. Always. Malachi 3:6, I'm the Lord Yahweh Sabaoth, I change not. And you shall know today, for it is not your children who have not known and who have not seen, The discipline of Yahuwah, your Elohim, his greatness, his strong hand, and his outstretched arm. You've seen these things, and his signs and his works, which he had done in the midst of Mitzrayim, to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, Egypt, and to all his land, and that which he had done to the army of Mitzrayim, to their horses and to their chariots, when he made the waters of the sea of reeds overflow them as they pursued you, and how Yahuwah has destroyed them to this day. And what he had done for you in the wilderness till you came to this place, and what he had done to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, son of Reuben, when the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and their tents, and all the living creatures that were in their possession in the midst of Israel. This is Numbers 15 and the rebellion of Korah that he's talking about right now. Again, Deuteronomy is the second telling. This is Moses, retelling the children of Israel all the things that they need to remember before they go into the promised land, because they've rejected the promised land once already. You know, this is an interesting thought. Here's Moses telling the fathers, chosen people, what they need to do to be righteous in the land before they enter into it. It's oddly reminiscent of Acts 15, 19-ish, when there's this council of the early church saying, hey, we've got all these believers, Gentile believers in Messiah. What should they do? Abstain from strangled food, don't drink blood, do not fornicate, don't worship idols. And then from times ancient, Moshe has those proclaiming him in every city on the Sabbath. Go to the temple on the Sabbath and hear what Moshe had to say. That's straight up Acts, early church, New Testament. This telling of, hey, here's what you got to know. Go see Moshe so that you know what you've got to know, so that you can guard to do. Literally, how does chapter 11 start? And you shall love Yah, your Elohim, and guard his charge, even his laws and his right rulings and his commands always. Okay. This coffee is freaking tremendous, by the way. I need a 5-gallon bucket of this in a Heplock mainlined into whatever. Yeah. Hang a bag, brother. Hang a bag. I need one. For yours are the eyes that saw all the great work of Yahuwah, which he did. And you shall guard every command which I command you today, so that you are strong, and shall go in and shall possess the land which you are passing over to possess, and to prolong your days in the land which Yah swore to give to your fathers, to them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. You know, that's a phrase that we hear often enough, flowing with milk and honey, and we're thinking, that's cute. You can't have those two things without an incredibly rich ecosystem, without a lot of resources, good water, good fodder, lots of plants to pollinate, lots of pollinators, healthy animals. I mean, the implications of milk and honey alone are good. Like, oh, this is a good place. We'll get milk and there'll be honey. Flowing with milk and honey means exceedingly good. The depth and richness of resources in the land are there. Interestingly enough, you don't get milk or honey unless you come into union with those resources on the land. They don't just show up at your doorstep. You have to go get them. Think about that. They're there. But you have to put your hand to the plow, literally and figuratively, to get them. For the land which you are going in to possess is not like the land of Mitzrayim, from which you have come, where you sowed your seed and watered it by foot, as a vegetable garden. But the land which you are passing over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water from the rain of the heavens, a land which Yahuwah, your Elohim, looks after. The eyes of Yah, your Elohim, are always on it, from the beginning of the year to the latter of the year. And it shall be that if you diligently obey my commands, which I command you today, to love Yah your Elohim and to serve him with all your heart and with all your being, if you diligently obey the commands and love Yah your Elohim and serve him with all your heart and all your being, all your soul, then I shall give you rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, and you shall gather in your grain and your new wine and your oil. And I shall give grass in your fields for your livestock, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Guard yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other mighty ones and bow down to them. Guard yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other mighty ones and bow down to them. You know, I just did a podcast episode 7, yesterday morning. That will have been 8 days ago when you see this video. And we read James 1, and there's a lot of bombs in James. I said in that podcast, I don't even understand why James has been allowed to remain in the New Testament, considering all the Pauline doctrine that's in there and how, well, see, if you understand Pauline doctrine, you understand that Paul was for the Torah. I mean, straight up Acts 24:14, words of Paul under oath to the Yehudim, the Jews. Bro, I believe firmly in the Torah and the prophets having a full expectation of the resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. So Paul's like, yo, Torah, prophet, resurrection. Copy that. Me too. But the modern church loves to just abuse Paul. Why can I not find the book of James? Probably because I just woke up and my hands are throbbing from nerve damage, which is cool. Right there after Hebrews, that's what I thought. Let's try again. James 1. Therefore, put away all filthiness and overflow of evil, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your lives. And become doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Because if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in the mirror, for he looks at himself and then goes away and immediately forgets what he was like. But he that looked into the perfect Torah, that of freedom, and continues in it, not becoming a hearer that forgets, but a doer of work, this one shall be blessed in his doing of the Torah. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jacob, James. And it shall be, back to Deuteronomy 11, page 198 in the scriptures, verse 13. And it shall be that if you diligently obey my commands, which I command you today, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your being, then I shall give you rain in your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, and you shall gather in your grain and your new wine and your oil. And I shall give grass in your fields for your livestock, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Guard yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other mighty ones and bow down to them. Then the displeasure of Yah shall burn against you, and he shall shut up the heavens, and there shall be no rain, and the land not give its increase, and you shall perish quickly from the good land which Yah is giving you. Yeah. Guard yourselves lest your heart be deceived over here, and become doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. That's a works-based theology. That's what your Bible says, which is why you should read it and not believe every word that comes out of the face of a man, myself included. Okay, but I digress. And you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your being, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and your gates, so that your days and the days of your children are increased on the soil, of which Yahuwah swore to you, to your fathers, to give them, as the days of the heavens on the earth. For if you diligently guard all these commands which I command you to do it, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to cling to him, if then Yah shall drive out all these nations before you, and shall dispossess greater and stronger nations than you. All right, there's a lot of meat in here. First of all, and you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your being. Pause. Flip to Hebrews 8:10. You know, we were just over there next to Jacob, James. Hebrews 8:10. Page 1172 in the scriptures. Because this is the covenant, the agreement. This, by the way, is the renewed testament, the renewed covenant. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So over here in Deuteronomy 11, and you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart, and in your being, and in your soul. Okay, your heart and your soul. Cool. Oddly reminiscent of, now this is what would be considered the Mosaic covenant, which I've heard argued ad infinitum that this covenant has been done away with. This is what was nailed to the cross and done away with by the blood of Messiah, which is just more proof that people don't read their Bibles, because what was nailed to the cross was your chirographon, Greek word for your sentence under the law, not the law itself. The law still stands, and in fact, we're gonna, because we're here, we'll take a look at that. But under the Mosaic covenant, the old covenant, we are to have right here, and you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your being, in your soul, and bind them on your hand, and be as frontlets between your eyes, and teach them to your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you rise up, and when you sit down, and when you're walking along the way, and on your doorpost and on your gates. This should constantly, the Father's laws and his covenant with you should literally be on your mind all the time. Copy that. Then we get to the new covenant, aka the renewed covenant, Hebrews 8:10, because this is the covenant, the agreement between two or more parties, that I shall make with the house of Israel, not the Pentecostals, not the Baptists, not the Mormons, not the non-denominational evangelicals, not the Methodists, not the Lutherans, definitely not the Catholics, because they're a bunch of wizards. The house of Israel. Well, who the hell is the house of Israel? Go get a mirror and look at it. Israel means he who overcomes with El. That's literally what it means. Yeah, This is why we read our Bibles. Israel is he who overcomes with Elohim. He who is overcome with God. Remember when you invited Yeshua into your heart to be your Messiah? There you go. He who overcomes with Israel. So this, because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of he who overcomes with after those days, says Yahuwah, not the Lord our God, Yahuwah. Exodus 15:3. Yahuwah is a warrior. Yahuwah is his name. Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. Giving my laws in their mind, and it shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. Giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts. What does it say over here? Lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your being and in your soul, giving their laws in my mind, and I shall write them in their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbors, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest, because I shall forgive their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawlessness I shall remember no more. Yeah, New Testament, right? No, Jeremiah. That's a direct quote from Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. Not so New Testament-y. But anyway, that's the renewed covenant, which has the exact same terms as the Mosaic covenant, interestingly enough. Then why do we have Messiah? Oh, that's simple. Hebrews 8:6. He's the mediator of this renewed covenant right there. He's the go-between, which is another talk for another time. But just to put the nail in the coffin of the idea that, well, all this was done away with, the law was all done away with, we don't have to do that anymore because of Messiah, go to Hebrews 10, verse 26, page 1174. For if we sin purposefully after we have received knowledge of the truth, if we sin, 1 John 3:4, sin is transgression of the law, and he that does sin does lawlessness. So if you're not doing the law, you're sinning. For if we don't do the law purposefully after we have received knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment, a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Elohim, Yeshua Messiah, underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the spirit of favor? For we know him who has said, Vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. And again, Yah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. Oh, I've got Jesus. I don't have to worry about that anymore. My sins are paid for. Shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? No. God forbid, straight out of the mouth of Rabbi Paul. And then we have here in Hebrews 10, which was not written by Rabbi Paul. It was written by somebody pretending to be Rabbi Paul, which is the common historical belief at this point. It's probably the youngest book in the Bible, written somewhere around the time of Constantine, perhaps. Yet it is here and divinely inspired. We have the writer of Hebrews saying, if we continue to sin after we know the truth, there no longer remains an offering for your sin. Not only that, you should have an anticipation of fearsome judgment, because under the Torah of Moshe, anybody who sins can be killed without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3. How much worse he who knowingly sins and tramples underfoot their Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Son of the living Elohim. and counts the blood of his covenant as common, and insulted the spirit of favor. For we know him who has said, vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. And again, Yah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. So just to put a nail into the coffin of that argument, no, we still do these things. Okay. So, that's Deuteronomy. That's the New Testament commentary on Deuteronomy 11, verse 18. Then we get farther from there. This whole thing, this whole passage right here, 18 through about 22-ish, is very reminiscent of the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, and then the instruction immediately following it, Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah is our Elohim, Yah is one. Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Okay. And you shall love Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. Sound familiar? Hear. I had an excellent brother tell me one time, he said the reason we're instructed to put them here is because if the only place that you know them is here, you can set this down and walk away from it. And the ring of truth in that was so striking that I will never forget that. I firmly believe that's why we're instructed to have these commands in our heart. Because you can't unknowingly deny the unction of your heart. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Sound familiar? Yeah, we were just there. So, foot stomp on that from Moshe. Back to Deuteronomy 11. 4, verse 22. For if you diligently guard all these commands which I command you, to do it, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to cling to him, then Yah shall drive out all these nations before you, and you shall dispossess greater and stronger nations than you. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads is yours, from the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river and the river Euphrates, even to the western sea is your border. No man shall stand against you. Yahuwah your Elohim shall put the dread of you and the fear of you upon all the land where you tread, as he has spoken to you. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, when you obey the commands of Yahuwah your Elohim, which I command you today. And the curse, if you do not obey the commands of Yahuwah your Elohim, but turn aside from the way which I command you today, to go after other mighty ones which you have not known. So this is kind of the prelude to the conversation that Moshe has with us, his people, in Deuteronomy 28. The blessings and the curses. But it all comes back to, if you obey the voice of Yah your Elohim, then you will be blessed. If you do not, then you will be cursed. This is so anti-modern Christianity that it's mind-blowing to see people try to jump through hoops to explain this within the context of grace and love and nailed to the cross and your sin has been forgiven, brother. It's like, you know what? All that sounds really good except for the fact that it's complete and total bunk when you look at what Messiah taught. And you look at what Messiah taught, he was reiterating and expanding upon what Moshe taught. And you look at what Moshe taught, that was an expansion and a reiteration of what Abraham lived, and the righteousness that Noah exuded. And like all these things stack. One does not displace the other. But it is clearly something that we do. We obey the voice of the Father to do. Yeshua points us back to the Father to do. The Torah is something that we do. It should be something that we study. It should be something that we read daily. But above all of that, it's something that we do. And in the doing of, and I have said this for as long as I've been keeping Torah, in the doing of, we experience blessings from the Most High, from Father Yah. That's not some abstract concept, and it's not something that I invented. It's right here in black and white, over and over and over again. And the concept that that's, heretical proves the fact that modern Christianity, and some would say Christianity back into antiquity, is not biblically based. To which I would say, that's not been my experience. No, it's not biblically based. If you simply read the Bible, all of it, in context, you come to a real fullness of understanding of what it is the Father's ideas were when he put all these plans in motion, and how it is that we are supposed to live our life. We're supposed to be a simple people. We are supposed to interact with one another with kindness. We're supposed to be a friend to the stranger. We're supposed to remember that we were oppressed once and not to oppress other people. We're not supposed to overreact when somebody insults us. We turn the other cheek to that. However, if somebody poses an actual threat to us, we smite them, and we smite them righteously. We are to execute with the power of the Ruach HaKodesh and the authority of Yeshua Messiah. We are to do these things forever, always. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim and guard his charge, even his laws and his right rulings and his commands, always. And in the doing of this, we are to be raised up above all nations, sanctified, set apart. And we experience provision and blessing when we do. And we experience the opposite, some would call it curses, when we don't. And the whole point of Messiah was to come and atone for sin once and for all, to remove that stumbling block in between us and the Father so we could get back to him. And when we get back to him, to realize, to come to the fullness of understanding that these things are still in play, so that we can live a life in service to Yah and win victories for his kingdom and have everlasting life through the atoning sacrifice of Yeshua. And in the meanwhile, experience life and life abundantly, as Yeshua said, because by doing these things, we are blessed. And that right there, in a nutshell, is a mind-blowing concept that the vast majority of Christians would consider deeply heretical. However, I consider the fact that you call yourself a Christian and don't even read the words of your Messiah heretical. So, perhaps we are at an impasse, but all I can do is encourage everybody within the sound of my voice to read your word for yourself, because it's right there in black and white. 29. And it shall be, when Yahuwah your Elohim has brought you into the land which you go to possess, that you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not beyond the Jordan toward the setting sun, in the land of the Canaanites who dwell in the desert plain opposite Gilgal, beside the terebinth trees of Moreh? For you are passing over the Jordan to go in to possess the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you, and you shall possess it and dwell in it, and shall guard to do all the laws and right rulings which I am setting before you today. we'll do 12 as well. These are the laws and the right rulings which you guard to do in the land which Yah, your Elohim, the Elohim of your fathers, is giving you to possess all the days that you live on the soil. Completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are dispossessing served their mighty ones, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. Under every green tree. That's not what a Christmas tree means to me. That's Nimrod's erect phallus, BT dubs. And I don't mean to be so condescending, other than I've just heard so many arguments this past holiday season that, well, that's not what it means to me. Okay. If you want to bow down to Nimrod's erect phallus to pull the blessings out from underneath it and somehow call that a celebration of the birth of your Messiah, which it's clearly not historically, and we're told repeatedly that these things are an abomination to Yah. And it says right here, completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are dispossessing serve their mighty ones, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. I know. Listen, I was a Sunday going Christian at one point too. We did the Christmas things and the Easter things, and it was just friggin' empty. Just going through the motions. And I was ready to puke if I heard one more self-help seminar masquerading as a sermon. There's actually a worship song called Going Through the Motions. I remember playing that many times on drums and thinking at one point, this is precisely what I'm doing, going through the motions. This is wickedness. Why am I doing this? I'm out. I'm done. And we left. I'm really bad at gray area. I'm good at black and white. Like, what does it say on this page in black and white? Well, you know, brother, it takes the proper dispensation, and what we really need here is the wisdom and discernment to properly divide the word. And yeah, but what does it say? Good morning, bub. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. Asherim are, Google it. Look for pictures, Google images. They're pillars that are shaped like erect phalluses. Asherim, Ashtaroth, Ishtar, Easter, pagan fertility. Erect phalluses, Asherim, Ashtaroth, who's Ishtar, who is Easter, which is another abomination that Yahuwah or Elohim hates and tells us not to do. And you shall cut down the carved images of their mighty ones and shall destroy their name out of that place. Do not do so to Yahuwah your Elohim, but seek the place which Yah your Elohim chooses out of all your tribes to put his name there for his dwelling place, and there you shall enter. So of all the land that's going to be divvied up among the tribes, find the place where Yah's dwelling place, the tent of appointment, is going to live. And there you shall take your ascending offerings and your slaughters and your tithes and the contributions of your hand and your vowed offerings and your voluntary offerings and the firstlings of your herd and your flock. And there you shall eat before Yahuwah your Elohim and shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to and your households in which Yahuwah your Elohim has blessed you. Do not do as we are doing here today, each one doing whatever is right in his own eyes. Do not do as we are doing here today, each one doing whatever is right in his own eyes, because you have not yet entered into the rest and the inheritance which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. But you shall pass over the Jordan and shall dwell in the land which Yah your Elohim is giving you to inherit, and he shall give you rest from all your enemies round about, and you shall dwell in safety. And it shall be that unto the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell there, that you are to bring all that I command you, your ascending offerings and slaughters, and your tithes and contributions of your hand, and all your choice offerings which you vow to Yahweh. So bring all your stuff to the temple, the tent of appointment. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your sons and your daughters, and your male servants and your female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Guard yourself that you do not offer your ascending offerings in every place that you see, except in the place which Yahweh chooses. In one of your tribes, there you are to offer your ascending offerings, and there you are to do all that I command you. Guard yourselves that you do not offer your ascending offerings in every place that you see. Remember the issue with the golden calf. Aaron, the anointed of Yah, the chosen high priest. I don't know if anointed is the word I'm looking for there. He had an ordination from Yah. That's more accurate. Made the carved image, the golden calf. And then he said, hey, tomorrow we're going to have a festival to Yah. And Moshe comes down off the mountain and is like, WTF, bro. Levites, put your sword upon your hip, go throughout the camp from north to south, east to west, and slaughter every man who bowed to this golden idol. It does not matter that the high priest of Yah was going to have a festival to Yah with this golden calf. What mattered was that Yah said, you don't do this. And those that did suffered death for it. There's a strong teaching in that for us. A very strong teaching in that for us. And that's why, one of the major reasons why I tell you, I will fail you. Because I'm a man. And so you need to put your own nose in your own Bible. Because if Aaron can lead his people in worship that results in 3,000 of them dead for transgressing the will of Yah, so too can any of us. Remember that. But also, don't put Yah's stamp of approval on your BS. Oh yeah, this graven image, this golden calf, this is good to go for Yah. Guard yourself that you do not offer your ascending offerings in every place that you see, except in the place which Yahweh chooses. Only whatever your being desires you shall slaughter and eat according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you within all your gates. The unclean and the clean do eat of it, the gazelle and the deer alike. The unclean and the clean do eat of it. Okay, to be clear here, we're talking about ritual cleanliness, not clean versus unclean food. That has an undertone or a resonancy, a similarity to the forsake not the widow and the orphan. The unclean and the clean do eat of your slaughterings. So that we're not discriminating, I guess would be the word. Excluding, perhaps. Only the blood you do not eat, pour it on the earth like water. You are not allowed to eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, or of your new wine, or of your oil, or the firstlings of your herd of your flock, or of any of your offerings which you vow, or your voluntary offerings, or the contributions of your hand. But eat them before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which Yah your Elohim chooses, you and your son and your daughter. So these things we take to the tent of appointment. You and your son and your daughter, your male servant, female servant, and the Levite who is within your gates. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim in all that you put your hands to. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim in all that you put your hands to. Boy, there's a life lesson there. Are you rejoiceful in all that you put your hands to? The answer is no. Either your heart is in the wrong place, or you're putting your hands to the wrong things, or perhaps both. And listen, I'm as guilty of this as the next man. I do all kinds of things that make my soul groan because it's got to get done. But does it? Does it really? Give us this day our daily bread. Guard yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live in your land. When Yahweh your Elohim enlarges your border as he has promised you, and you say, let me eat meat, because you long to eat meat, eat as much meat as your being desires. See, this is an interesting juxtaposition here, because now that they're in this land, when Yah, your Elohim, enlarges your border as he has promised you, and you say, let me eat meat because you long to eat meat, you eat as much as your being desires. The last time they desired meat was in the wilderness, or the last time we hear the story of this, and the Father brings in all these birds, and people eat to their fill. And yeah, it becomes a lesson in gluttony, because it's like, you don't think that Yah can provide meat. I mean, there are people with baskets full, like 60 birds in a basket. And so what he's saying here is, if your being desires meat, go ahead and eat it. There's not that element of distrust and punishment here, because you're in the land that's been promised to you by Yah. Now, of course, the generation that ate all those, what were they, doves, partridges, pigeons? The generation that ate all those birds has died off anyway at this point. When the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from you, when the tent of appointment is too far from you, then you slaughter from the herd of your flock which Yah has given you, as I have commanded you, and you shall eat within your gates, as much as your being desires. Only as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you are to eat of it. The unclean and the clean alike eat of it. Only be strong not to eat the blood, for the blood is the life. And do not eat the life with the meat. Do not eat it, you pour it on the earth like water. Do not eat it, that it might be well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh. Think about that, though. I mean, this is pretty straight up. Bloodborne pathogens, disease, need I say more? You know, with this Wuhan coronavirus going around right now, what do they think? It's bat soup that started this whole mess? Yeah, there's certain things that, there's actually very few things that are living that are clean for a human to eat. Leviticus 11, bro. Do not eat it, that it might be well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahuwah. Only the set-apart gifts which you have in your vowed offerings you are to take up to go to the place which Yahweh chooses. And you shall make your ascending offerings the meat and the blood and the slaughter place of Yahuwah your Elohim. And the blood of your slaughterings is poured out on the slaughter place of Yahuwah your Elohim, and you eat the meat. Guard and obey all these words which I command you, that it might be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim. When Yahweh your Elohim does cut off from before you the nations which you go in to possess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, guard yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did these nations serve their mighty ones, and let me do so too. Do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahweh hates they have done to their mighty ones. For they even burn their sons and daughters in their fire to the mighty ones. All these words I am commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it, nor take away from it. All right, a handful of things here, then we'll put a bow on this. Guard yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how do these nations serve their mighty ones? And let me do so too. How do these nations serve their mighty ones? Flip to the book of Acts, Acts 15. John, still John, Acts 15, go to verse 19-ish, which is page 1071. This is right in the conversation about what shall we do with these Gentiles who are coming to belief in Messiah. Therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim. Just remember that, the nations, because it's vitally important that you understand inclusivity versus exclusivity. There is Israel, he who has overcome with El, us, and the nations, everybody else. And well, that's not very Christian. That's what the freaking book says, okay? So just so that we're clear on that. Therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim. Okay, just remember over here. How did these nations serve their mighty ones? And let me do so too. So these nations out there, over here, who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilement of idols, serving their mighty ones, and from whoring. Oh boy, they love that. Fornication and whoring is a huge part of pagan worship. And from what is strangled, and they would strangle the life force out of animals to absorb their power, witchcraft, wizardry, and sorcery, and from blood. We just read about the blood in Deuteronomy. So all of this right here in the book of Acts, amongst this council of the early church, as these people are turning to Elohim, these people are coming to Elohim. What do we do with these Gentile believers? Abstain from the defilement of idols, as we just saw in Deuteronomy, and from whoring, and what is strangled, and from blood. All of this is Torah, by the way. All of this is Torah. What does the early church want people, Gentile believers, to do? Torah. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. Do these 4 things and then go hear the words of Moshe on the Sabbath. Straight up book of Acts. Copy that. It's also important to understand yet again that these people from the nations are turning to Elohim. They believe in Messiah. Where does Messiah point them? Elohim. Back to the Father. We've read in Hebrews earlier, Hebrews 8. He's the mediator, Hebrews 8:6, of a renewed covenant between us and the Father. Our faith is not a destination. It's not a stopping point. We don't get to mental belief in Messiah and stop there. We get there so that that brings us back to Yahuwah or Elohim. These, and you want proof of that? More of that heretical thought? It's right here in the book of Acts. Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim. And a handful of verses away, we have men who have given up their lives for the name of our Master Yeshua Messiah. So they were familiar with the difference between Yeshua Messiah and Elohim. They understood that the idea here of Yeshua Messiah was to point people back to Elohim. They understood the Hebrews 8:10, 8:6, 8:8, 8:10 renewed covenant because they understood the words of Jeremiah that Messiah's job is to bring people back to the Father, not to bring people to himself, which is why he says repeatedly, my doctrine is not mine, but the one who sent me. Okay, also, back to Deuteronomy. Do not do so to Yahuwah your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahuwah hates they have done to their mighty ones, for they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. Okay, This is Molech. Flip to Leviticus 18:21, which is page 124. And do not give any of your offspring to pass through to Molech, and do not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. You can also go to 1 Kings 11, verse 7 for more on Molech. But Molech was, and in fact, King Solomon, the wisest idiot in all the world, 700 wives and 300 concubines, built altars to Molech and to Ashtaroth, which we've seen as not wise. So much so to the point that Yah literally raised up an army against him to destroy him. It wasn't simply enough that Yah pulled his hand off of Solomon. He goes, oh, no, now I have to wreck you. So, Molech is an iron statue of a man sitting that they would heat red hot. And he had a toque cap on. So this big red thing, man beast thing, with a toque cap on. What's a toque cap? Well, it has a border around here and it's pointy. Then it comes up into a little pom-pom, kind of like what Santa would wear. And you would heat this iron statue red hot. And then you would put your child into the lap of the red statue, which was red hot, and it would scream because it was being burnt to death on red hot iron. And the priest of Molech would interpret the screams of this child, usually your firstborn. And based upon the screams of your firstborn infant child who's being cooked alive on an iron statue, the list of things you wanted for the coming season, the priest would determine whether or not you were going to receive them. The naughty or nice list, your gift of presents coming from Molech clause. And so, while obviously the modern story of Santa Claus is just some kind of outdated trope of that, and don't have near the same intensity, that's where it comes from. And it's disgusting. It's really, really, really disgusting. And to tie that back into the birth of Messiah, which didn't happen on December 25th, Nimrod's birthday, and the winter solstice, is a disgusting pagan abomination and completely extra biblical. And right here in Deuteronomy 12, do not do so to Yahuwah your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahuwah hates they have done to their mighty ones, for they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. All the words I am commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it nor take away from it. Do not add to it nor take away from it. We've seen that before, and just on that last little thing right there, do not add to it nor take away from it. So it doesn't matter what Santa Claus means to you. It matters what it means to Yah. And just on the concept of do not add to it nor take away from it, here's the words of Messiah himself during the most famous sermon in all of Christendom, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, verse 17. Do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete, to be it. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one yod or one tittle, the smallest marks, shall by no means pass from the Torah to all be done. Okay. This is not going away. And this right here shall by no means pass from the Torah. Not even the tiniest mark shall be taken away from the Torah till all be done. And people love to say, well, yeah, but he meant to all be done on the cross. Yeah, but it says right here, till heaven and earth pass away. Well, where am I sitting right now? Pretty sure this is earth. Pretty sure heaven's that way. So it's not, all has not be done yet. This stuff is still in play. And we are told by Messiah, this stuff is still in play. And we're told by Moshe over here in Deuteronomy 12, all the words I am commanding you today, guard to do it, do not add to it, nor take away from it. Deuteronomy 12, 11 and 12. There's I don't know what else to say. It's not our way, it's Yahweh. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter how we think, how we feel, what we've been taught. What matters is what Yah says. And the closer you get to what Yah says for you to do and his will for your life, man, the better life gets. You know, I get so many people are like, Barry, you look tired. It's because I am tired. But I'm good tired. There's pushing 68,000 people within the sound of my voice. If I'm tired because I could have slept in, but I didn't, so that I could get up and read my word, whether on the podcast or on these Bible readings that we do here, or if I'm tired because it's Monday evening and I really want to just go to sleep, but we've got men's group Monday, or if I'm tired and I, really like to just take a rest, but we've got 3 upcoming deployments for our spring mission with Grindstone Ministries to go help people save lives and restore victims of human trafficking and sex crimes. Yeah, I'm tired. But I'm good. The thing that makes me most tired is interfacing with the world. That is the most exhausting thing that I do. Because the more set apart you get, the more energy it takes to interact with the world. So I'm tired, but not exhausted. I've still got a lot of fuel in the tank. And I've got a lot of fuel in the tank because I'm filled up with what the Father gives me. Because, to the best of my ability, I diligently heed the voice of Yahuwah my Elohim, and therefore I experience his provision and blessing because of it. And guard to do all the words I am commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it, nor take away from it. Come to me, all ye who labor. My yoke is easy, my burden is light, says Messiah. We forget that the implication is that there is a yoke, though, that there is a burden. But when compared to the world, oh, it's so much lighter. It's so much easier. It's so much better, more fulfilling, more powerful. Praise Yah, here we are doing it. Shalom.